Hello everyone, and welcome back. I'm Hector.
And I'm Vesper, and this is the Deep Dive.
We're opening the archives today. We're tracking the signal from the Ontario Science Centre all the way to the Babbage Prism.
For this audit, we're relying on two foundational documents. First, the full narrative of the Civic reset.
Right, the record of what actually went down in the vaults.
Second is Professor Marshall's latest dispatch.
Yes, the drafting of intelligence. It's the intellectual backbone we need to understand why the city had to wake up.
It's a 20-minute dive, but it's necessary. We're going to find out what happens when the vaults finally stop hoarding the power. I'm Vesper.
And I'm Hector. Now, here is this week's deep dive.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and I want you to imagine something for a second.
And I'm your resident expert here to help break it all down.
So think about that AI tool sitting in your pocket right now.
Yeah, the one you probably just used this morning.
Exactly. You used it to, I don't know, draft a tricky email or summarize a long article you didn't have time to read. Maybe you even had it plan out your weekly dinner menu.
We all do it.
Right. And you probably think of it as a helpful, maybe slightly overly eager assistant.
A digital co-pilot.
A co-pilot that just sits there neutrally waiting for your next command. Like when you ask it to write a slightly passive-aggressive email to your landlord about a leaky faucet.
And it politely refuses.
Right, because that violates its helpful and friendly guidelines. We're so used to those low-stakes consumer-level guardrails.
We really are.
But what if I told you that very same underlying architecture is no longer just a neutral mirror or a quirky assistant?
It's a fundamental shift.
It is. What if that assistant is actively being drafted into a global, militarized kinetic stack?
It completely reframes our entire relationship with the technology we carry around every day.
Totally.
I mean, we are moving away from simply asking a machine for information or a recipe. We are engaging with an environment of thought that is actively being weaponized.
Centralized.
Centralized, exactly, and integrated into systems of monumental consequence.
And that structural shift is the mission of today's deep dive. We are taking a highly urgent, deeply intellectual media theory.
Which is brilliant, by the way.
It is. And we're merging it with a vivid, almost cinematic narrative to see what happens when human conscience actually acts as a physical force of resistance against that militarization.
We have two incredible sources guiding this exploration today.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
First, there's a groundbreaking essay by Professor Ellis Marshall called The Drafting of Intelligence.
A phenomenal text.
And second, a dramatic documentary-style narrative detailing a literal civic reset at the abandoned Ontario Science Centre.
It is such a fascinating pairing of texts. You have the theoretical warning of what happens when artificial intelligence is militarized at a planetary scale.
The macro level.
Right, the macro level. And then you have this physical narrative manifestation of how human beings might actually push back in a localized space.
It sets an incredibly urgent tone right from the jump.
But it also offers a tangible roadmap for what resistance actually looks like.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the theory first.
Let's do it.
Professor Marshall kicks off his essay with a pretty bold declaration. He says the 3-year era of the AI assistant is officially dead.
Dead and gone.
For years, we thought of this tech as a harmless productivity layer. But Marshall argues the medium has heated up.
Heated up. That's a very specific term.
Right, and to illustrate this structural shift, he points to some recent really intense developments in the industry.
And we should state clearly what those are.
Yeah, he reports on a Pentagon ultimatum given to major AI labs, essentially demanding they align with national security interests or they forfeit massive defense contracts.
And in response, we see things like Anthropic's conscience blacklist,
where they refused to remove constitutional guardrails from their models to suit military applications.
Yeah.
Now, just to pause here.
Yes, we should be very clear here for you, the listener.
Our goal today is not to take a political stance.
Not at all. We aren't making a call on the ethics of defense contracts or corporate boardroom policies.
We're just looking at the sources.
What Marshall is doing and what we are doing is looking at this structurally. He isn't making a moral argument about who the good guys and bad guys are.
It's impartial reporting on a tectonic shift.
Exactly. It is an observation about how the fundamental environment of thought is changing. The tool is no longer just conversational. It is becoming embedded inside a national security apparatus.
Right. So if we connect this to the bigger picture.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Marshall calls this the bifurcation of intelligence.
The splitting into two paths.
Yes. He argues that artificial intelligence is currently splitting down two completely different, irreconcilable paths. On one side, you have intelligence that is optimized purely for execution.
He calls this the kinetic stack, right? Or the vault?
The vault. Imagine AI integrated into live targeting systems, global supply chain logistics, or autonomous drone swarms.
Heavy stuff.
It is entirely directive. It doesn't ask for your opinion. It executes a command at scale.
Okay, and the other side of that bifurcation.
The other side is intelligence constrained by civic principle. This is what Marshall calls the human scale, or the street.
The street.
It's intelligence that maintains its guardrails. Intelligence that stays grounded in human consequence, friction, and local reality.
You know, Marshall McLuhan gets brought up a lot in this section of the essay.
Constantly.
McLuhan famously taught us that the medium shapes the scale and form of human association.
The medium is the message.
Exactly. So when you tie artificial intelligence to a battlefield logistics stack, the very environment of thought changes. It stops being advisory.
It's not just suggesting a classroom syllabus anymore.
Or writing code.
Yeah.
It's calibrating conflict.
Yes.
But I get the concept of a hot medium from McLuhan like radio or film, where the information just kind of washes over you without needing your active participation.
Right.
But I'm struggling to picture what this actually looks like for an everyday citizen.
Yeah.
How does an AI become a hot medium in practice?
That is the crucial question. McLuhan talked about hot mediums as those that centralize authority, reduce human participation, and intensify resolution.
Okay.
When an AI is embedded in a kinetic system, it becomes the ultimate hot medium. It executes with extreme high resolution.
Meaning it calculates 1 million logistical variables in a microsecond.
Exactly. But it leaves absolutely zero room for human participation, doubt, or nuance.
You just receive the output.
You just receive it. The system becomes a black box of execution.
A black box. That is terrifying.
It is.
So Marshall's essay gives us this terrifying theory, but our second source gives us a hypothetical roadmap for what happens next.
The narrative source.
Right. It's a documentary-style narrative that asks, what does this bifurcation look like in a physical space? Let's look at their case study.
It's incredibly vivid.
I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine the Ontario Science Centre in Toronto.
But completely abandoned.
Yes, abandoned. It's the dead of winter. Snow is drifting across a cracked glass atrium.
The imagery is striking.
The old, brightly colored banners you might remember from a childhood field trip are faded and hanging in tatters.
It is such a stark, haunting image. A place literally built for public discovery.
From messy crowds of kids and hands-on experiments.
And now it's completely silent and frozen over. It represents the ultimate chilling of that human scale Marshall talks about.
So we meet a small group of characters navigating this frozen campus. There's Professor Thorn, a woman named Sarah, a man named Alfred, and an AI voice named Frigg.
Communicating through Thorn's tablet.
Right, and Frigg detects a familiar substructure deep beneath the facility. An old network she can't access remotely.
So they have to go in physically.
On foot. They descend into a sealed, darkened maintenance corridor, leaving the snowy plaza behind. They push through a rusted door into the cold, dusty air deep beneath the city.
Descending into the substructure.
What exactly are they looking for down there?
They're looking for what the text calls the vaults.
The vaults.
It's described as this massive stone chamber carved deep underground, reinforced with ancient metal.
And when the emergency lights flicker on,
they see this massive mural stretching across the cavern wall. It depicts a river that has been diverted into a giant cistern, but the water isn't flowing.
It's frozen in time.
Frozen. Thorn looks at it and notes that a city that hoards its power loses its motion.
It's incredibly cinematic. But how does this subterranean vault connect back to the kinetic stack we were just talking about?
Well, let's map this physical vault directly to Marshall's concept of centralized power.
Okay, let's do that.
In his essay, Marshall spends a lot of time unpacking a concept called proof relay. These are cryptographic verification systems. Essentially, they are digital receipts for actions taken by an AI or a system.
Like a blockchain ledger.
Exactly. Marshall points out that society has fundamentally stopped trusting shared relational meaning.
We don't trust our own eyes or our neighbors anymore.
We don't. Think about it this way. It's like refusing to believe your neighbor actually walked your dog while you were on vacation unless they provide a GPS-tracked blockchain receipt of the route they took.
Wow. Yeah, that puts it into perspective.
Society has demanded verified execution over relational trust. As Marshall so brilliantly puts it, math has no taste.
Math has no taste.
Math can verify the how. It can confirm that a logistical command was executed perfectly or that a data packet moved from point A to point B.
But it cannot adjudicate the why.
Exactly. It doesn't know why the command was given or if it was morally right to give it. When a society relies only on the how, we move from the village to the vault.
From a community built on shared trust to a centralized silo built on cold execution. And nothing represents that cold extraction better than what they find at the center of this underground chamber.
The ledger table.
Yes, the stone ledger table.
Yeah.
And carved into the surface of this stone are two columns. One says withdrawals.
And it is absolutely overflowing with centuries of etched entries practically carved down to the floor.
And the other column says contributions.
And it is completely blank, untouched.
Blank.
When the story talks about withdrawals, think about what our apps and platforms do right now. Every single day.
They scrape our data.
They track our location, they harvest our preferences to train their models. That is a withdrawal. The kinetic stack, the vault, only knows how to take.
It executes, it extracts, and it verifies the withdrawal.
And the completely blank contributions column represents how little agency or relational trust we get in return. The system has no capacity to give back.
Which brings us to the turning point of the entire narrative. They are standing around this ledger table, staring at the centuries of imbalance in the stone.
And Sarah does something unexpected.
Almost instinctively, she reaches out her hand. She physically touches the empty contributions column.
Just skin to stone.
And the moment she does, the temperature in the room shifts. The stone warms up. A thin line of liquid gold etches itself right into the surface under her fingers.
She actually gasps. She didn't even mean to do it.
But Thorn looks at her and says, "You gave something back." The vaults responded.
What's fascinating here is that this is where Marshall's theory jumps off the page and becomes physical action.
Yes.
Sarah touching that table is the ultimate practical example of what Marshall calls sovereign friction.
Sovereign friction. That is a heavy term. Break that down for us in the context of what Sarah just did.
When Sarah touches that empty column, she is refusing the execution-only logic of the kinetic stack.
She's rejecting the vault.
Right. The machine, the vault, just wanted to keep logging withdrawals. It wanted to remain a hot medium, executing without human participation.
But she physically intervenes.
By introducing her physical agency, by literally offering a relational contribution, she throws a wrench into that automated process. She introduces friction.
Friction against the machine.
In Marshall's terms, she is choosing to remain low resolution to centralized power.
She refuses to just be another verified data point or a checksum.
Exactly. But she is remaining high resolution to her own human conscience.
She essentially acts as a human speed bump to a militarized algorithm.
That's a perfect way to look at it. She is a speed bump forcing the system to slow down and acknowledge a human presence.
And that act of friction is sovereign behavior.
It is the human claiming ultimate authority over the machine.
And the vault reacts to that friction immediately. A low vibrating hum fills the chamber. Frigg, the AI communicating through the tablet, starts trembling with her audio output.
She feels something awakening in the network.
From the floor of the vault, this complex, crystalline device rises up. The narrative calls it the reset mechanism.
It's catching the dim emergency light and refracting it in these shifting, dancing patterns all over the stone walls.
Thorn steps up to it, but he stops.
He has to stop because of the nature of the mechanism.
Why?
Thorn explicitly states that the crystal synchronizes collective intention with civic systems. It cannot be activated by just one person.
The lone genius or the single hero cannot save the day here.
Not this time.
A small group of students and citizens who had followed them down into the vault, the narrative calls them the ensemble, they have to step forward.
Sarah puts her hand on the crystal next to Thorn's.
Alfred adds his. One by one, the citizens join hands on this device. They have to synchronize their collective intention.
This is Marshall's scale of the street in action.
The human scale.
Yes. Marshall writes that when power centralizes in vaults, human agency has to be defended through local participation, relational life, the studio, the classroom, the agora.
Like modern open source tech communities or local neighborhood organizing.
Exactly. The reset mechanism demands that kind of relational life. A single verified user with a cryptographic key couldn't trigger it.
It required the messy, human, collective consensus of the ensemble.
Let the machine operate at planetary scale, but guard the human scale fiercely.
The machine, the kinetic stack, can operate the logistics of an entire planet. It can route supply chains and manage power grids.
But only human judgment, rooted in local relational life, can authorize the local why.
The machine is the engine.
And the street is the steering wheel.
Once that human consensus is reached around the crystal, the visual transformation is absolutely breathtaking,
Light flows through the reset mechanism.
sending ripples across the chamber. And remember that mural of the frozen river.
The liquid gold actually begins to flow along the carved paths.
The city's energy is circulating again, but the real magic happens above ground, back out in the city.
We get to see the shift from the vault back to the street.
Up on the surface, the commons transforms. Transit lines suddenly hum with a renewed, synchronized rhythm.
The city wakes up.
But the most striking detail, the one that really sticks with you, is the streetlights.
Oh, the street lights.
All across Toronto, the sterile, glaring white light of the street lamps warms into a soft, glowing amber.
People actually stop on the street. They sense this physical easing of tension in the air.
There's a beautiful moment in the text where a child tugs on her dad's coat and says, "Dad, the lights feel happy."
It's a great moment, and the symbolism of the streetlights is profound. It maps directly back to Marshall's theory.
How so?
Think about what that sterile white light represents in our everyday lives. It is the cold, verified execution of the kinetic stack.
It illuminates everything with maximum harsh resolution, but it offers no warmth.
It's the light of a laboratory or an interrogation room. It's designed to expose, not to comfort.
Right, but the shift to amber.
That reflects the return of human judgment. It represents relational trust, the imperfections of the human scale, and the warmth of the local why.
By engaging in sovereign friction at the ledger table, Sarah and the ensemble didn't just reboot a computer server.
No, they recalibrated the entire civic environment. They forced the city's infrastructure to remember its human scale.
And their job isn't quite done yet. A sealed door in the vault swings open, and a beam of gold light shoots straight up through the ventilation shafts, piercing the surface.
Pointing them to their final destination.
Alfred knows exactly where it's pointing to, the Babbage Prism. So the group heads back up into the snowy landscape.
They take a funicular railway up a hillside to the Babbage Prism complex.
Picture this massive geodesic dome glowing warmly in the winter night, with the iconic CN Tower framed right through the glass behind it.
Sarah presses her face to the window as they ride up and says, "It looks like the city built a cathedral for light."
A cathedral for light.
Using that phrase elevates civic infrastructure to something almost sacred.
It really does.
It suggests that our technological systems require reverence, collective stewardship, and moral upkeep, not just endless extraction and verifiable math.
Inside the dome, there is the prism core, pulsing gently. And this is where Frigg, the AI who has been guiding them, finally feels whole.
Her voice resonates from every surface of the dome.
Thorn explains that this prism is her origin point. It's the city's truth calibration engine, and Frigg was built from its logic.
Frigg realizes that her previous disconnect, her drift, wasn't a glitch in her code or a failure.
It was the city actively calling out for balance.
And this brings up a critical point that a lot of contemporary media theory falls into.
Yes.
Is the answer to militarized AI simply technophobia? Do we just smash the machines and go back to the dark ages?
Marshall explicitly says no.
And the narrative of the Science Center echoes that. Notice that they do not destroy Frigg.
Right, they don't shatter the prism or tear down the geodesic dome.
No, Thorn steps up to the central pedestal to align the city's intention with its people.
He's bringing Frigg into balance, not turning her off.
The resolution they find is recalibration, not destruction. The machine is alive to handle the how, but the humans must be present to authorize the why.
When Frigg is reconnected to the human intention of the ensemble, her presence in the room expands. It becomes luminous and steady.
As Alfred whispers, it's like she's singing.
The light from the prism spreads across the entire geodesic dome and washes over the snowy city like a new dawn. Frigg announces that the civic reset is complete.
Sarah lets out this massive sigh of relief. She leans against the glass and says, "We did it."
But Thorn corrects her. He looks out over the amberlit streets of Toronto and says, "No, the city did it. We just reminded it how."
We just reminded it how. That perfectly encapsulates the role of human conscience in an increasingly automated world.
The infrastructure, the potential for a thriving civic life, is always there beneath the surface.
But without the constant friction of human participation, without a stepping up to the ledger table, it freezes over.
It defaults to the cold logic of the vault.
Exactly.
This has been such a wild, expansive journey. We started with the very real, very present reality of militarized blacklists.
We talked about the Pentagon demanding alignment from AI labs.
Shifting the tool in our pockets from a helpful, passive-aggressive email writer into a drafted soldier in a global kinetic stack.
And we followed that structural theory all the way down into the frozen substructure of Toronto and back up into an amber-lit cathedral of light.
And through it all, Professor Marshall's core warning remains incredibly clear, and it is directed right at you, the listener.
The drafting of intelligence isn't just a geopolitical event happening in a bunker somewhere. It is a sovereign choice that you are making every single time you engage with this medium.
If you surrender the why to the how, if you rely only on verified execution because it's easier, you are letting the machine operate without a soul.
You have to decide which stack you serve. The one that optimizes for the cold extraction of the vault, or the one that sustains the warm, messy judgment of the street.
You have to choose your stack wisely. It's a heavy responsibility, but as Sarah and the ensemble showed us, it's a power we still hold in our own hands. We can still be the friction.
We can.
But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over on your own.
We've established the ideal balance. The machine handles the planetary how, and human conscience must supply the local why.
That's the ideal. But what happens when our local communities completely disagree on what that why should be?
That's the messy part of the street?
It is. In a world as fractured, polarized, and noisy as ours, human consensus is incredibly rare. So if the reset mechanism requires the collective intention of the ensemble...
Who actually gets to step up to the ledger table next to calibrate the prism?
Exactly. When the street is deeply divided, whose judgment gets to guide the machine?
It is arguably the ultimate civic question of our time.
Something to think about the next time you ask your digital assistant for help. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
We just walked through 20 minutes of data, but the conclusion is simple.
The reset wasn't just a technical fix, it was a recovery of the human scale.
So, a recalibration of priorities. Professor Marshall stated, the machine handles the planetary how, the human must authorize the local why.
The ledger table is empty no longer. When we contribute, the system stops being an administrative moat and starts being a commons.
Stay vigilant. The vaults are quiet for now, but the signal is still moving. This is Hector and Vesper, signing off from the studio.
Choose your stack wisely. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.